You are losing arguments not because you lack the right words, but because you use too many of them. Think about the last time you tried to explain yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you. You brought logic. You brought emotion. You laid out your boundaries. And how did you leave that room? Drained, invalidated, smaller. You've been conditioned to believe that whoever speaks loudest, whoever has the last word, holds the power. That is a lie engineered by fragile egos to keep you playing a game you were never meant to win. Today, we are killing the need to explain. We are stepping out of the arena of cheap arguments and into the realm of absolute psychological dominance. If you are tired of being the emotional anchor for toxic people, if you are done letting the loudest voice dictate your peace, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, and drop a comment below. We are building a sanctuary for those ready to master their minds. There are two distinct types of silence in this world. The first is the silence of the prey. It is the silence of submission, born entirely from the fear of conflict. It is you swallowing your anger, nodding along just to keep a peace that is slowly destroying your mental health from the inside out. This is the silence society praises. They call you the bigger person. They tell you you are being mature. Friedrich Nietzsche, however, called it the herd morality. It is the behavior of the weak, masking their cowardice as virtue. But there is a second type of silence, the silence of the predator, the silence of the Übermensch. This silence doesn't avoid the battle. It ends it before a single shot is fired. It is deliberate. It is heavy. It is absolutely suffocating to those who demand your reaction. When a manipulator, a narcissist, or simply an arrogant colleague throws a verbal punch, they expect you to bleed. They expect you to justify, defend, or counterattack. That reaction is their oxygen. They feed on your emotional dysregulation to feel superior. When you give them silence, a cold, unbothered, unbroken silence, you cut off their oxygen. You force them to sit in the uncomfortable echo of their own disrespect. You shift the power dynamic in an instant. They become the ones scrambling to fill the void, backpedaling, revealing their deep-seated insecurities and making critical mistakes. Look closely at your own life. The coworker who takes credit for your work, the family member who disguises sharp insults as casual jokes, the partner who turns every minor disagreement into a trial where you are the defendant. When you react to them, you actively validate their disrespect. You are subconsciously telling them, "Your opinion of me matters enough to disrupt my nervous system." Nietzsche understood that the compulsion to defend oneself is a blatant symptom of weakness. It is the fragile ego screaming for external validation. The precise moment you step into their ring to prove your worth, you have already signaled that your worth is up for debate. It is not. Your presence alone must become the final argument. But achieving this level of psychological mastery requires tearing down everything you have ever been taught about human communication. It requires an uncomfortable confrontation with your own need to be understood. Let's dissect exactly what happens in a room when you refuse to speak. This isn't abstract philosophy. It's behavioral biology and depth psychology applied to modern conflicts. When someone subtly insults you, talks over you, or tries to gaslight you, what they are actually doing is throwing a psychological hook. They are fishing for your emotional dysregulation. Why? Because the moment you raise your voice, the moment you scramble to list facts and justify your position, you hand them the remote control to your nervous system. They are no longer fighting your argument. They are managing your reaction. Nietzsche envisioned a higher state of human existence, the Übermensch, or the Overman. This isn't a mythical figure. It is an individual who has completely conquered their own reactive impulses, achieving true self-mastery. The Übermensch does not engage in cheap emotional theater. They recognize that arguing with someone committed to their own ignorance is a profound waste of life force. So what do you do instead? You deploy silence, but not a passive, fearful silence. An active, predatory silence. When you look someone dead in the eye after a manipulative remark and say absolutely nothing, you turn the interaction into a psychological vacuum. You remove the friction they were relying on. Suddenly, their words just hang there in the air, echoing back at them. Neurologically, this is devastating for the aggressor. Without your reaction to guide them, they lose control of the narrative. Their amygdala, the fear center of the brain, spikes, panic sets in. They begin to project their own insecurities onto your quiet demeanor. Are they judging me? Did they see right through my lie? Do they know something I don't? You don't need to attack them. By remaining perfectly still, you force them to attack themselves. They will start talking too fast. They will backpedal. They will over-explain. They will reveal the exact weaknesses they were trying to hide behind their arrogance. This is the ultimate shift from being a pawn in their game to becoming the architect of the environment. You stop living as a slave to your impulses. You stop begging to be understood by people who do not want to understand you. This is how you survive the high-stress battles of daily life. Not by adding more noise, but by presenting an unshakable truth through your presence, a core principle in the modern information survival game. But holding this kind of silence requires a brutal internal recalibration. It demands that you let go of the ego's desperate plea to be right. It hurts at first. It burns the ego to let an insult go unanswered. But that burn is the sensation of you taking your power back. In the next phase, we have to look at the exact mechanics of how to execute this in real time. Because if your silence looks like pouting or retreating, you will fail. There is a precise method to making your silence deafening. So, you've mastered the silence. You've become the gravitational center of the conversation. You've used your internal stillness to dismantle the ego-driven noise of the herd. But here is where most people get it wrong. They think the silence is the goal. It isn't. The silence is the space you create to prepare your final, surgical strike. Nietzsche didn't advocate for passivity. He advocated for the will to power. And there comes a moment in every power struggle where the silence has done its job. It has exposed the other person's insecurity. It has exhausted their arguments, and it has stripped them of their defensive armor. That is the moment you speak. But you don't speak to respond. You speak to terminate. When you decide to break your silence, it cannot be a continuation of their argument. If you continue their line of reasoning, you have failed. You must change the frame entirely. Your voice must be lower, steadier, and devoid of that frantic energy they are so desperate to feed on. You deliver a statement, not a question. You do not ask for agreement. You do not seek validation. You state a reality that makes further discussion not just unnecessary, but absurd. Think of it like this. The person arguing with you is playing a game of checkers, constantly jumping pieces, trying to prove they are winning. You are playing a different game entirely. You are watching the board. When you finally move, it's not to jump their piece. It's to tip the board over. That is the Übermensch approach. You don't compete with them on their level. You make their level obsolete. But I need you to understand the danger here. If you use this kind of presence without total control over your own ego, you become exactly what you are trying to defeat. You become the narcissist. You become the manipulator. The only difference is your internal state. Are you doing this to inflate your own sense of superiority? Or are you doing it because you refuse to let anyone else dictate your reality? Nietzsche's strength was not about dominating others to feel big. It was about the absolute refusal to be diminished by their smallness. Before we move into the final darkest application of this strategy, the moment where your silence essentially topples their reality, I want to make sure you are still with me. This is not for everyone. This is for the few who value mental sovereignty above all else. If this resonates with your pursuit of mental freedom, make sure you are subscribed and that you've hit that notification bell. I want you to drop a comment below with, "I command my own silence." It's a simple affirmation, but it marks the moment you stop asking for permission to exist in your own power. We are moving into the final, most strategic phase now. How do you handle the people who are not just arguing, but actively trying to destroy you? How do you deal with those who don't care about the truth, who don't care about your logic, and who are only looking for a way to break your spirit? This is the final frontier of Nietzschean mastery. There is a dangerous perversion in modern self-help. It tells you that avoiding conflict at all costs is maturity. It conditions you to swallow your anger, to concede your space, and to nod along while someone openly disrespects your boundaries, all under the guise of keeping the peace. Nietzsche identified this exact behavioral trap over a century ago. He called it the morality of slaves. It is a value system engineered by the weak to survive in a world they are too terrified to confront. When you use silence because you are afraid of the fallout, you are not practicing stoicism. You are practicing submission. You convince yourself that fighting back isn't worth the energy. But let me give you a psychological reality check based on actual human behavior. Narcissists and highly manipulative individuals do not respect your peaceful silence. They view it as a green light. When toxic individuals encounter a lack of resistance, they do not self-correct. They escalate. They push their ideas, impose their will, and build their empires entirely on your reluctance to fight back. You are paying an agonizing physical and emotional tax for this false harmony. The stress of unexpressed boundary violations doesn't just disappear. It manifests as chronic anxiety, relentless overthinking, and that deep existential exhaustion you feel at the end of every single day. You are being drained, and you are handing them the needle. Nietzsche did not write for the resigned. He wrote for the individual willing to break the chains of social conditioning. He demanded the realization of the will to power. But understand this carefully. The true will to power is not about screaming over someone else. It is not about dominating the room with a loud voice. It is the absolute, unshakable mastery of yourself. It is the transition from the silence of the prey to the silence of the predator. How do you make that shift? You stop using silence as a place to hide. Your silence must become an aggressive boundary. It must be heavy with presence, unblinking, and entirely detached from their desperate need for your reaction. You owe them nothing, not an explanation, not an apology, not a defense. We have to kill the herd mentality inside you, that desperate, ingrained urge to be seen as nice or reasonable. The world does not respect nice. The world respects boundaries. When you stop apologizing for existing, your silence stops being a white flag and becomes a shield. But how do you physically and mentally hold this space when your heart is racing and your adrenaline is spiking? In the final chapter, we are going to break down the exact execution of the Übermensch silence, the precise way to hold your ground so that when you finally do choose to speak, your words completely shatter their reality. Here is the exact blueprint for executing the silence of the Übermensch when your biology is screaming at you to fight back. First, you must master the physical anchor. When someone attacks your character or manipulates a conversation, your sympathetic nervous system floods your body with cortisol. Your chest tightens, your breath becomes shallow. You feel an overwhelming urge to correct the record. This is the exact moment you lose. To outsmart them, you have to override this biological reflex. Drop your shoulders. Breathe directly into your stomach. Maintain unbroken, relaxed eye contact. Do not glare. Glaring is a reactive emotion. Look at them with the mild, detached curiosity of a scientist observing a chaotic experiment. You are communicating physiologically that they are not a threat. Second, become the mirror. The average person uses words as a shield to hide their profound insecurities. When you refuse to give them a target to strike, their defensive energy has nowhere to go but back inwards. Let the silence stretch. 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Watch them unravel. You will physically see the panic set in. They will inevitably try to fill the void because the human ego abhors a vacuum. They will backtrack, over-explain, or launch a secondary, weaker attack just to provoke a pulse from you. Let them. They are dismantling their own argument for you. Third, the lethal strike. When the silence has suffocated their ego and they are left exposed and scrambling in the quiet, you finally speak. But you do not engage with the content of their attack. You address the nature of it. If someone tries to gaslight or humiliate you, you let the silence hang until the room physically feels the weight of it. Then, calmly, with a low and steady voice, you say, "Are you finished? Or you seem highly emotional right now. We can talk when you've calmed down." You don't defend your position. You don't match their frantic volume. You simply hold up a psychological mirror to their emotional dysregulation. It is a surgical move. It is devastating. And it requires absolute self-control. Nietzsche warned that whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process he does not become a monster. When you engage in endless petty arguments, you are lowering your frequency to match theirs. You are rolling in the dirt. The ultimate form of power is the realization that your internal peace is infinitely more valuable than proving a point to a fool. Silence is not the absence of a response. It is the definitive, unshakable response. It is the ultimate boundary. It is you deciding that your energy is an exclusive, high-tier resource, and they have not earned the right to consume it. Stop giving away your power to people who are entirely committed to misunderstanding you. Stop living by the herd morality that dictates you must be an accommodating victim just to keep the peace. Reclaim your sovereignty. Master your internal world, and the external world will have no choice but to bend to your quiet presence. If this message shifted your perspective, do not just consume this information, embody it. Share this video with one person who desperately needs to reclaim their power today. Stay grounded, stay unbothered, and let them drown in their own noise.